reach out to many countries and many movements. And that's why today will be a challenge, because we have in total 12 speakers. And there will be, in the beginning, a bit longer, 8 to 10 minutes, but then it will be only 3 to 5 minutes, because it's very useful to have some time in the end where we can have some discussions and so on. I will, after 7 minutes, I will tell the two persons who I hope will introduce this session. Let me see. I'm missing Heikki Patomäki. And also Olga, who I had contact with 2 minutes ago or so. I hope they will come any second. But then after 3 minutes, I will indicate that now it's one have to start to think about ending the introduction. So most welcome. And Kalle Benson, you may introduce.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Kalle Benson. I'm from the Nordic Peace Alliance, but also I'm also into Danish organizations. ICAN Partners Forbid Atomvåben, and also NOAA Friends of the Earth Denmark. Yes, next.
Yes, and I urge people that you can the chat. Chat is very important. There you can have any kind of comments on the declaration. Please send it in writing. We will save the chat, but there you can also have discussions and parallel to what's happening here. You know, the young activists, especially Neringa, who's together with us today, and also her companion Alia, have learned us how to use these methods, and we have to start to learn them as well. So please use as much as possible. And just to now, we see Heikki Olga has arrived. Welcome very much. And I've just said to everyone that you have longer time, but the other interventions will be shorter, and I will intervene after 3 minutes. I will start to try to wind up. Because the idea was really to have this kind of broader discussion, hoping for renewed interest in common security and human rights with the use of the diplomatic, successful Helsinki Conference 1975. So please welcome everybody. And now I ask the person who is upside down to start. Tarash from Belarus. Welcome.
Just a moment, I have to. I don't know how it's possible. Even I cannot understand how I did it, you know. I will try to fix it.
Do you change in configuration the count the zone?
In configuration, yes?
Rosie is the expert. She is in Mexico, and she is the wonderful person who has organized the interpreters, and they are also very wonderful, our interpreters, helping us so much. And she is used to these things, or has to be, by practice. And it's only because of this help from Japan to Mexico that it's been possible to be able to organize this event. Yeah. But I think we can live with you upside down. or otherwise.
Just a moment. I try to leave and return back. 1 minute.
Then we let Heikki Patomäki.
No, it's better like this.
So, Heikki Patomäki, please, can you take the floor?
Of course I can, and I hope I'm not upside down. Anyways, I'm going to say a few words about the concept of common security that is central to the OSCE, and also something about the contradiction that is inherent to the way things have been framed within the OSCE system. Now, common security as a concept emerged in the 1980s. It was part of the, and in the title of the Palme Commission 1982 report. There were other people who had been developing similar kinds of ideas in the peace movements and peace research community in the 1960s and 70s, but the concept itself was launched at this point in time. So this was after the Helsinki Conference of 1975. So obviously the Helsinki process in the original version of it didn't include the concept of common security. Now, the basic idea of this concept can be expressed in various ways. First of all, it recognizes that war could arise from the dynamics of a security dilemma, meaning that the apparently defensive preparations by states can be seen as offensively intended by rival states. And this leads to the security paradox where everybody is more insecure than they would be otherwise. And according to the Palme Commission and many others, the problem has been made worse by someone has a mic open, which might be disturbing, by the existence of nuclear weapons. So the idea of common security is that the security of one state or one party is best ensured by enhancing the security of others, rather than through military buildup or dominance or anything like that. And so the idea is that security should be mutual, it should be cooperative. According to the Palme report, states cannot achieve security at each other's expense. Security must be achieved not against the adversary, but with him. Common security, I'm still reading from the report itself, must replace the present expedient of deterrence. What are the practical implications of the concept? I mean, they have included things like trust building and disarmament. And both are conceived as a mutual process. I mean, they're not conceived as unilateral things, but they require the cooperation of different parties. Now, this was also the basis of the Paris Charter in 1990, so 8 years after the Palme Commission report. The Paris Charter uses the terms cooperation and common in the context of security almost interchangeably. Sometimes they also add the concept of solidarity as well. So just a couple of quotations. Security is indivisible, and the security of each participating state is inextricably linked to the security of all the others. The unprecedented reduction of armed forces brought about the Treaty of Conventional Armed Forces in Europe and the new approaches to security and cooperation in the CSCE process mean a new concept of security in Europe and a new dimension in our relations. I mean, this was the spirit of 1990 and when the OSCE was founded. In practical terms, since 1990, the OSCE process has included confidence and security building measures, the establishment of conflict prevention center, various field missions, mediation and dialogue platforms, and also an office for democratic institutions and human rights. All this sounds good, and this is all very important, but there's a central contradiction in the OSCE. The first part, the common security itself, is cooperative and so on. It expresses the primacy of shared understandings and values, and thereby those of the world community. However, these documents also include a more individualistic and possessive side as well. And this is this contradiction between the two. Sometimes it's only a tension, sometimes it's an utter contradiction. Is also at the heart of the indeterminacy of international law as well. So on the one hand, the possessive individualism part has to do with state sovereignty, which is supposed to be absolute. And then on the other side is the community, whether it's the OSCE or the world community in a more generic way. It has its own values, and it also tries to stimulate cooperation, solidarity, and so on. And there are tensions between the two. In the OSCE documents, the possessive individualism is expressed in statements like the following. We are determined to cooperate in defending democratic institutions against activities which violate the independence, sovereign equality, or territorial integrity of the participating state. So the states are sovereign and they're equally sovereign. And the sovereignty here is understood in absolutist and categorical terms. And one of the implications has to do with security arrangements. One of the statements in the Paris Charter reads, in this context, we fully recognize the freedom of states to choose their own security arrangements. Now, if the aim is to protect the independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, self-determination, and freedom of choice of each member state, then the cooperative community shouldn't set any limits to their sovereign freedom, so they can do basically whatever they like. So when states are free to choose their own security arrangements, for instance, and if this means forming, enlarging, strengthening, or joining a military alliance, or even preparation for war, so be it. And in the OSCE process, the actors have actually been aware of this tension, although they may not always see it as a contradiction between the individualism of states and the collectivism or communitarianism of the world community. For example, the 1999 Istanbul document exhibits both elements of individualism and common security in one single passage. And this was a contested passage in the negotiations. The Americans in particular, they seem to have been pushing for possessive individualism here for the Istanbul document, likely in anticipation of the NATO enlargement. The sentences in the same passage directed against the US's or NATO's possible dominance in Europe, they stem from the Russian demands, obviously. And then these were in turn moderated by a strong admonition not to rely on the concept of sphere of influence, which was seen as a way of returning to a kind of an older version of the world of sovereign states that included also various imperial practices that we have commonly associated with the concept of sphere of influence. Now, this is a little bit confusing, obviously. So in order for this to make sense, in order this to not to be totally indeterminate, there has to be some kind of a mediating principle between individualism and communitarianism. It cannot be found in the OSCE documents in any explicit form, but there are certain tendencies that are very clear nonetheless. So the Paris Charter as a whole is framed in terms of the reduction of the armed forces and new approaches to security, where security is seen as indivisible and the security of each state party is inextricably linked to the security of all other states. Now, so we need a mediating principle of some sort, and my suggestion is that the good candidate for such a task is John Stuart Mill's no harm principle. In his On Liberty, Mill argued that individuals are free to do whatever they want as long as they don't cause harm to others. This famous no harm principle can, arguably, provide a minimalistic definition of what is meant by common. It is, of course, in line with the underlying liberalism of this kind of a theory and understanding, which is like common sense in both international theory and in the contemporary neoliberal world. It is not without its limitations, but it's nonetheless a good minimalistic starting point for trying to reconcile the two sides of also the OSCE documents. It doesn't exclude more ambitious goals of common and cooperative security, but it's a good way of trying to reconcile the two in various contexts. So a few words about the applications of this. Let's consider first the NATO enlargement. The essence of military alliances is that they are directed against some states that are not part of the alliance. And they are very often seen as, or typically seen as, potential threats. So, and it is also clear that the expansion of the alliance can strengthen the military strength of the alliance in the same way as armaments can. So they are equivalent in terms of their effects. The OSCE principle of no harm is not devoid of substance or direction, as mentioned already a few times. The general thrust of the spirit of the OSCE is in the direction of disarmament and confidence building. So common security, moreover, is also opposed to military buildup or any attempt by one party or grouping to dominate. Hence, in general, one can argue, military alliances and their expansion can be difficult to reconcile with the principle of no harm. However, if the overall situation and the context is based on trust and cooperation involving a process of disarmament, it may be possible to see the two as consistent. However, the NATO expansion toward Russia's borders didn't occur in this kind of a context. In the 2000s, and particularly in the 2010s, the situation started to be quite different, and there was also a historical background to this. The nuclear deterrence between the US and Russia continued to define their relationship in the 1990s and 2000s. By early 2000s, it was made clear that Russia will not join NATO, it would remain outside NATO. And by that time, due to many incidences, including the Kosovo crisis, the Iraqi war, the color revolutions, and so on, so by 2005 or so, the trust between Russia and NATO or the US was already crumbling. So the context was not particularly cooperative anymore. And in this context, following the idea of the no harm principle, it is clear that NATO expansion was causing harm. Now, in the dynamics of the recent decades, the conflict between individualism and communitarianism, or the contradiction between the two, has in fact worked in both directions. Quite often, the West has appealed to the values of the world community, particularly those of democracy and human rights, when interfering in the internal affairs of countries. Russia, for its part, has justified its difference, including its distancing itself from the ideas of democracy and human rights as conceived in the West, and some of its actions, including military operations on the territories of other countries, in a manner that is consistent with possessive individualism. So both sides have been using both individualistic and communitarian arguments. And Russian rhetoric, of course, includes simultaneous appeals to both individualist and communal principles as well. So in conclusion, my argument is that the principle of common security continues to provide an alternative to competitive security, military buildup, and the resulting security paradox, meaning that everybody at the end of the process found itself in a more insecure situation than they used to be. Now, the OSCE has indeed been built on this concept, but in a contradictory manner. And unfortunately, also the draft for the Helsinki Plus 50 People's Declaration on Common Security and Human Rights includes the same contradiction as well. Particularly the first two, the principles, but also others as well. For example, we recognize the right and the responsibility of people, civil society, and social movements to raise concerns across borders in defense of human rights, provided they do so in a spirit of impartiality and peaceful intent, and rise against militaristic nationalism and authoritarianism. But here, this contradicts the principle of state sovereignty that is also seen as one of the fundamental principles as well. Now, I have suggested that the principle of no harm can provide a mediating principle that is adequate for for resolving this problem to some degree. Of course, at the deeper level, the consequences of this underlying contradiction can be altered and mitigated through broader institutional transformations of the world system or parts of it. Either way, the institutional transformations require some tensions and contradictions will always continue to exist, involving conflicts between different political ideologies, but this is fine as long as these conflicts are part of peaceful democratic politics. So the problem lies in the security dilemma. However, due to a lack of time, I will have to leave the topic of broader institutional transformations for another time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heikki Patomäki. Precisely that kind of criticism you bring forward. That's why we have these sessions, and I hope you can contribute more to the continued discussion that has to be finished on the 7th of July, and then we make a final version for a sign-on process. Olga, now the floor is yours, but please make it shorter than what Heikki did. We will have problems. I know that we created this problem by inviting too many, so it's not you who are the problem here, but anyway, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as you notice, I was upside down at the beginning of the conference, and I think that it's very symbolic. This is what I feel today when I am following for the political situation. My name is Olga Karach. I am from Belarus, and now I'm in exile in Lithuania. I'm a chief of the Belarusian Human Rights Center, Our House in Exile. I'm also a member of WILF, and I have very strange feelings today, as I already mentioned it, because I spent more than 25 years of my struggling for the dictator or against dictator in Belarus. And when Lukashenko got the power, I was 17 years old, so quite young. And I went or grew up together with the young dictatorship in Belarus, and I knew everything from the beginning. And Lukashenko built the dictatorship, and we tried to stop it, but people didn't understand the consequences. And now I am in Lithuania, and this is so again, this is so strange feelings, because I have strong imagines that I grow up or I wake up in Belarus now, and but Belarus is distributing for the whole planet. And I want to speak a little bit about my experience and why the situation is so dangerous even for Europe, because I am from like a person who has experience from both sides at the same time, and I can have such kind of reflections. First of all, we lack of political dialogue now. People stop to speak each other, and this is a very serious problem, much more serious than even we can imagine, because Lukashenko started to build the dictatorship with the help of Belarusian opposition, who says that let's ignore Lukashenko, don't speak with him, don't communicate with him, and and we can block him. And as the practice shows that he received a lot of power and energy, and as we see, the ultra-right-wing movements have more and more power, even with trying to block them from different sides, and at the same about Putin and Lukashenko, etc. At any way, we have to have dialogue even with the people and structures which we don't like or they don't like us. Also very important thing, it's if you have bad activities, even with the explanation of good goals, it's always something happening bad. Now we have common very bad explanation about we have a war. We have punished. We can forget about human rights because we have a war. We can threaten people and remove human rights and freedoms from the population because we have a war. We can label it somebody as a future threat of national security or extremist, terrorist, etc. because we have a war.
Olga,
yeah.
Please speak a bit slower for the interpreters.
Okay. Yes. So if we do something bad, the result will be bad. It doesn't matter which goals we have at beginning. Also, in Belarus, and this is the strategy of any dictatorship, in my opinion, nobody feels safe. Now, the same. Here, even in Europe, we don't feel safety. We don't, and at the same time, we love to speak about common collective security, but not any real actions and steps toward the collective security, because nobody believes in the people's power. And this is also a very serious problem, in my opinion, because people or politicians or media, they prove us that the power is in weapons, technologies, something else, but not in people's hands. And this is, it has a very serious consequence, because people started to believe in weapons power, and now they believe in nuclear weapons power. And every country is dreaming about nuclear weapons, and we have not only nuclearization of the whole region, but also new nuclear culture, you know, because it's popular now. People believe that this is the decision. And also, as a consequence of the common non-trust to the people's power, is lack of trust. We are living in the whole region, we are living in the society of very paranoid people who is following for other paranoid people. And again, it doesn't matter. We are here in Europe or Russia or Belarus or Ukraine or other countries. The common trends are absolutely the same. And people suspect each other, and as a result, the secret police, intelligence, surveillance, they have more and more power. But if any military bodies, secret surveillance, intelligence surveillance, KGB, etc., have more power than law, they have to manipulate this power. This is also the this is also the consequence of, you know, many years of experience. And what is important now? First of all, we have to return to the human rights concept, because I see how more and more people forget about the human rights as a necessary part of the collective security. We cannot have collective security without human rights for everyone. Why? We have to return to the Helsinki principles, and I'm very welcome with the initiative Helsinki 50+, because we need to save and develop the concept when the security and human rights are going and developing together. And this is why I think that we have only one possible way to change the situation, to stop the war, to stop militarization, to stop everything what is happening now in our region. And we have to build the militarized zone along the borders of European Union, Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, maybe for 100 kilometers, and including 3 steps. First of all, demilitarization of both sides from the border, and especially demilitarization of this peace line or peace corridor, to respect the right of consensus objectors. because we have, I hate to speak about definitions, military definitions, but now this is official statistics. We have 100,000 deserters from Russia and Ukraine together. This is the whole army. If we include conscientious objectors, the men from Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine who doesn't want to go to the army, this is huge number of men who doesn't want to participate in the war, and we have to help them. Also, of course, we have to fight against nuclearization of the region. We have to fight against culture and for promotion of peace narratives. This is second step. In my opinion, and the second step is very important, because with the hostage, with the common hate, when people are so divided, living and developed in the bubbles, it's impossible to develop any dialogue platforms. And third step, we have to build stable and sustainable platforms for dialogue, for the common understanding and the common activities, because we have only one planet, and we have we have only our own countries and the people, and we have to do everything to build sustainable peace. Sustainable peace is possible only when we respect human rights for everyone. And this is my message for today, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for this intervention. Now the case is that we have Ardo with us from Senegal, and I will ask him to mention something about the World Social Forum in Benin next year, where all these issues, peace and human rights for everyone, etc., come together. But maybe first bring in some others, and I did in the chat now a better list of the speakers. And Ringa Tumelaiti from Lithuania, where our house nowadays is situated, has to go a bit earlier for some commitment. So please take the floor, Neringa, and tell us also about this important organization that you are part of.
Hello, everyone. It's really great to be here. And I love the previous interventions. I will share a short presentation. I hope. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's possible. Now it disappeared.
Now we can see it.
Yes, and can you see it moving?
No, we saw it just.
It's not moving.
Okay, maybe now it's moving.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do it like this. So I represent United for Intercultural Action, which is a human rights network, and I'm also a PhD candidate at SOAS, University of London. My short intervention today is inspired by the topic of the upcoming conference hosted by the Finnish presidency, which is Helsinki +50, respecting the legacy and preparing for the future. And I wanted to offer some post-colonial perspectives towards these topics. So first of all, the points of declaration, which I was really inspired by, was the call for renewed focus on international law, also rejection of the misuse of human rights language to justify strategic advantages, also recognizing climate crisis as a fundamental human security issue, and a call for peaceful, just, and ecologically sustainable world. Before I go into some of the findings of research I've done, I want to acknowledge the complexity of Europe in the wider world. And here's a quote from the president of Finland, said just this month, where he justified Finland's refusal to recognize the state of Palestine, saying, "In times of change, each country applies these pillars in its own way. Finland will focus on values and interests." So I think we see that values-based foreign policy is in crisis, and Europe overall cannot be taken seriously in its commitment for international humanitarian law, which is
Написать по-английски
outlined
ответ на письмо я, кстати, не очень переживаю. Для меня это просто показатель того, что
Sorry, Andrea, I
белорусский
think
режим
you need
очень
to...
сильно следит за нами и
Please.
пытается каким-то образом нас
Yeah.
остановить и
I
помешать.
don't know how
Но
the
это на
mics are
самом
not
деле смешные какие-то
muted.
попытки. Есть гораздо более серьезные попытки, но то, что
Please
они за нами
mute your
смотрят,
mics.
Voy a sacar mi computadora de la
Amazing. Here I'll also briefly share the insights of the global dialogue on youth participation, peace and climate justice that we did with 50 young people from around the world, and some of the insights for the Eastern European and Nordic states.
Where is she?
Maybe the admin could mute.
Yo la verdad luego los pongo más hacia la ventana.
Please mute your mics.
Hola, compañeras, tu micrófono. Compañeras, tu micrófono.
No, ahorita.
Someone
This
can the
Like,
host mute
Whoever has the
Antonia?
admin rights can mute the participants. Or
Yeah,
don't-
but I don't see them because I see your. That's the problem.
Okay, she is muted now.
Okay, amazing. When we did a consultation and interpretation of our survey results together with the youth experts and researchers from Eastern Europe and the Nordic states on decolonizing climate justice, some of the insights were that because the countries were perceived as not involved in the neocolonialism, they were perceived as kind of not guilty and not in need of redefining the relationships. So for example, Eastern European youth will say, well, we didn't colonize anyone, so this is not useful formulation for us. However, how we will later find out it is. So why is that? So one is that there's a self-perception of Eastern Europe and the Nordics as either victims of colonialism, so for example, Eastern European states like Lithuania, which was occupied by the Soviet Union, or as a do-gooder, as for example, we see a lot with the Norway's education systems. And then problems of neocolonialism are perceived as kind of Western problem of states such as Spain, UK, France. And there's a erasure of own complicity in global extractivism and exploitation of our partner countries in the global South, and that includes Africa, Latin America, and of course, Middle East. Now, why is that important? Because we see countries in the Eastern Europe suffer from internal colonization as well, and they occupy very unique positions. So actually, Eastern Europe is neither global North nor the global South. The researchers who described it as a semi-periphery or as a sort of internal subaltern, like internal global South within Europe. And they explain semi-periphery as Eastern Europe as semi-periphery to the capitalist world system with aspirations to the whiteness and civilization granted by Europe, and this acquiring the status of both colonizer and the colonized. So here, for example, you see pictures from Lithuania, which is undergoing ecocide, courtesy expansion of IKEA and kind of selling its own forests to increase the GDP and pretend that we are Western Europe when actually we are not. So what are some of the suggestions from young people who joined from both Europe, East, West, North, Asia, Africa, and Latin America? So first was, of course, to look at the problems holistically and then address the structures which support neocolonialism and in which each EU member state is involved in its own unique way. And of course, for that, we need to go beyond the rigidness of North-South binaries, especially when it relates to quite unique positionalities of Eastern Europe and Nordics. And then also we must highlight the alternative epistemologies of relating to nature. So for example, sacredness of nature, which was key in the Baltic states prior to the Christian colonization. And this comes with the need to challenge scientific methods as the primary and only ways of knowing and generating knowledge. And of course, we also need new modes of engagement and honor for local traditions as a way to help us out of the planetary crisis in relation to both climate and peace.
Okay, good. That was other kind of perspectives. And of course, I especially like this IKEA, the biggest forest owner in Lithuania, who is also pressuring the government to change the laws in their interest. So this is a very clear case of what you brought up. So please, Hans Hedrich, can you...
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. If not, I will switch off my camera. Can you hear me well? Okay. So thank you for inviting me, Tord. My project is a very concrete one. On August 1 in Helsinki, I am planning together with Nordic Peace Alliance and other interested persons and organizations to have an NGO kind of Helsinki event, okay? Something apart from the official event, which will be on July 31, and something different from the more academic approach that will be on July 30 by the mainly Finnish or Nordic Peace Alliance people in Helsinki. So August 1 being August 1, 1975 being the date of signing the Helsinki Accords. I think it's such an important and symbolically loaded date and place that it's a must to use it, okay? Use the symbolism, don't miss that date. And apparently the official, the Finnish official event, for whatever reason, tried to avoid that symbolic date. So they have their event on July 31, and there's just a void on August 1. So let's organize ourselves this thing. And well, it would be great to have as many people there as possible. We will have probably presentations that were planned as a side event inside of the official Finnish event on July 31. So we will already have content there, but I think there will be still space and some time to add more content. And my personal approach, and with this I will finish my short presentation, my personal approach to security is the following. We need multilateralism, a multilateral security, and it must be inclusive. So peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, for example, must be multilateral, in a multilateral framework, and they must be inclusive. We cannot exclude anybody, as it has been tried in the past. And therefore, the OSCE framework is the best. And more precisely, maybe we can launch on August 1 the proposal to the OSCE and to the general public to have an OSCE peace summit of the heads of states or governments to negotiate peace, a sustainable peace, and a new security architecture in Europe inside the OSCE. So that's what I dream of, okay? As an NGO event, August 1, to launch an appeal to the official decision makers. Hey guys, wake up OSCE, organize an OSCE Peace Summit in the tradition of Helsinki 1975, Paris 1990, down to Istanbul 99 and Astana 2010. That's it basically, waiting for your input. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping the time so very well as well. I'm sorry I've been a bit not focused because there has some changes had to be done. And I forgot actually Heidi Meinzold from Women's International League of Peace and Freedom from Germany will also be a speaker. And if everyone continues as disciplined as Hans, we will make it. So next one is Yuri Shelyashenko from Ukraine and the pacifist movement in a country very much in need of pacifism. There, Yuri, take the floor.
Thank you, Tord, and I will need a bit more time, like 8 or 9 minutes. Greetings and peace from Kyiv, friends. I will start.
Please.
I will start with a story of tyranny and courage. When the Helsinki Final Act was concluded, 10 human rights defenders created the Ukrainian Helsinki Group in 1976, and they were immediately arrested and repressed. And yet, even from Gulag, from Soviet concentration camp, they managed to write open letter to signatories of Helsinki Accords, advocating nuclear disarmament and release of prisoners of conscience to comply fully with the Helsinki commitments. The letter said, I quote, "The war of ideologies give rise to a senseless arms race, so the disarmament of hearts and souls is necessary." I am here today to say the same. The disarmament in international relations starts from the disarmament of hearts that could have miraculous power. Millions on streets in Europe protesting nuclear sharing that ended the Cold War. Hundreds of thousands of conscientious objectors refusing to fight imperialist wars in Vietnam and in Afghanistan, and effectively forcing Soviet and American governments to end the wars. The proposed Helsinki 50 Years Declaration has good parts, such as critique of militarist nationalism, call to dialogue, disarmament, equality, sustainability, and most of all, respect to human rights. But the declaration also has serious gaps. Wrong emphasis on outdated concept of absolute sovereignty without democratic safeguards and limitations. Lack of references to human right to conscientious objection to military service and to urgent necessity of nonviolent resistance to all violence, war-making and tyrannies. Fragile reconciliation among predatory sovereigns, so-called great powers, fighting each other, agreed half a century ago in Helsinki, is now in ruins because it is impossible to bring genuine peace to international relations without bringing peace to every political community and every individual life. The militarized sovereign nations, calling themselves civilizations, are mockery of any civility with their nuclear weapons, able to kill all life on Earth, burn millions of innocent lives with their conscription, taxation, and taxation for war, not for peace, for God's sake, and deceitful propaganda of war. The corrupt strongman, advocate of sovereignty, ruling Russia from Kremlin, wages the war of aggression, kills Ukrainians, destroys our cities. Even this night, where is worldwide nonviolent resistance to Putin's war-making? If you are not ready to resist the war peacefully, it might happen to you too, like in Kiev. Once you could wake up from explosions in your city. Like here in Kiev, I could not sleep this night. I must hide in shelter because of the hellish rain of rockets and drones. Think about a 9 stories home for tens of people, destroyed by one ballistic missile. People killed, children killed. You could see in Europe next year's bussification, forced detention on streets using minibuses of youth and men kicking and screaming with purpose of conscription to army, and refugees with purpose of deportation, for example, to war-making states to be forcibly conscripted, like the Department of Homeland Security does in the United States. We have bussification here in Ukraine, and they have bussification there in the United States. And whole people are protesting against it. Here in Ukraine, there are hundreds of prisoners of conscience, and conscientious objectors are abducted on the streets and tortured for their refusal to become soldiers, as revealed in the annual report of the European Bureau for Conscientious Objection. I posted the links into the chat. Ask yourself, did you work enough to avoid that, to prepare your country, your society, your government for non-violent resistance to war? Because if not, the army, the militarists, will easily hijack your sovereignty, deprive you of your democracy, and they will dictate and conscript you to war with all cruelty you could see in the reports about forced mobilization here in Ukraine, and in the reports of shutdown and physical elimination of opposition in Russia and Belarus. And we know that one of fellow participants here, Olga Karach, is threatened with physical elimination by Belarus regime. So we are in solidarity with all war resistors in Belarus, in Russia, everywhere. And this war making will be called democracy. Democracy. And threatened, intimidated people will support war and military dictatorship in all polls of sociologists conscripted by propaganda, after the media conscripted by propaganda. And people will obey violence since you didn't taught your people civil disobedience. You might be persecuted for calls to peace and nonviolent action, like I am under trial and threat of prison for sending President Zelensky a statement of Ukrainian pacifist movement, peace agenda for Ukraine and the world. You might be denied in the right to leave your country during the war and deprived of protection and asylum in other countries because of nationalism and anti-immigrant sentiment. And when the United Nations will advocate your human rights, failed generals turned into diplomats of your country, like General Zaluzhny in the United Kingdom, will attack with contempt the United Nations on military conferences because they hate a hope for peaceful world it still represents, despite all its problems and lack of reforms. All of these are dark sides of sovereignty. And I urge you to support not sovereignty, but non-violent democratic governance by dialogue, not tyrants and war makers, but conscientious objectors, not sovereign right to conscript for mass killing, but human right to refuse to kill. And please support the Object War campaign, helping conscientious objectors, both from Russia and Ukraine, to defend their rights and to seek protection and asylum. Refusal to kill is the best way to end wars. The action making a culture of peace prevail. Culture of peace is a basis for implementation of the right to peace, the only path to common security. The delusions of absolute power and legitimacy of violent governance that underlies the concept of absolute, unrestricted, undemocratic sovereignty is antithetical to the genuine culture of peace. It is opposite to democracy, as everyday, honest and free speaking on public matters, listening each other, and seeking agreement among people, not scaring and deceiving people into submission. I am concluding. International community would get rid of the scourge of war only if peace-centered democratic transformation will start at the individual, local and domestic levels. So I am concluding with a call to emphasize in the declaration necessity of structural reform and transition from sovereignty to universal nonviolent governance on our common planet. necessity of worldwide popular nonviolent resistance to all war-making and military dictatorship, and necessity to protect and empower conscientious objectors. Because only when everyone will refuse to kill, there will be no wars in the world. And it would be a lovely world. Peace and love from Kyiv.
Well, sometimes as a moderator, you have to give up. I do hope that others will follow the example of Hans Hedrich. And I'm sorry that the thing was that we were very late. We had to invite many to believe that we would get enough people to come. So we are caught in a little bit moment 22. So now we continue, and we continue with Vera Zalka from the Hungarian Social Forum. Welcome, Vera.
Hi, everybody. It is difficult to speak after Yuri, but I will try. In my contribution, I would like to underline when we speak about peace and war, we have to talk a lot about the economical background of these wars and the need of the warmongers to create enemies. Let's take an example. The US and allies stated they won the Cold War. Then why on earth they still think that the post-Soviet region, Russia, is the enemy of them, and surround all Russia with military bases. So this is really senseless and only in their interest. Also, after 1990, how come there is already the Second War in Europe? After this Second World War, all of us thought that this can't happen, but it did, unfortunately. And they invented a new form, the preemptive strike, which they thought a good idea and liked it very much, using it once, and they used it again last week. On the agenda of warmongers, there is no different suggestions of disarmament proposals. They are discussing the increasing of militarization to a very dangerous extent to gain profits from military productions. The world capitalism is in big crisis. Through military production and profit, want to recover from its crisis and let the capitalist machine go. Arms production is a very profitable business. We, the civil society, are in big trouble. The war is not in our interest, but our entire lives are woven into the net of imperialist gangsterism. I have to share with you this year my great disappointment. In several countries, the pension funds are invested in military industry bonds. This information is a serious blow to the peace-loving movements because this is unacceptable. We should change. This should be changed and talked about. We would like, we cannot bear such a type of hypocrisy. We would like to make people's heads turn toward negotiations to the culture of peace, cooperation, and mutual help. Whom can we address? Those millions who work in the military bases or in arms production, for sure not. These are the places that give them their living. We must think and work on the transformation of arms production plants to civil needs production places. The same way it is a problem that UN is not in its power and respect it should be. This must be recovered. The World Organization must be put in its place in according to the demands of the people. It is unacceptable that in the unipolar world order, USA has taken over the alone exercises its power over nations and dictates sanctions not shying away from the means of punishing people and companies if they don't obey the interests of the USA or its perceived interests, because these interests do not match with the interests of the ordinary people of Northern America. NATO plays the role of the world policeman and enforces the colonialist powers' activities of plundering over other peoples and countries through force and wars, sweeping aside the rules of fair trade. Taking over the role of UN peacekeeping corps, NATO diplomats are trying to spread the image that they are serving peace with their wars and the senseless, immoderate, renewed armed race. So these are some of the causes we badly need to put the Helsinki process in its force again and make the public discussion more normalized, serving the way of peaceful talks, compromise, feasible agreements, disarmament, brotherly living, each beside the other, cooperate, transfer our world going on a mistrade way to a more walkable way of living and let living. All countries of Europe should be at the table of discussion. No exception, no exclusion. Foreign interventions to Europe's life is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Vera. And now I lost track because I don't, there we are, right? No, it was missing anyway. So now we come into the French section, as the case is that we have help from the World Social Forum family. And one of the great things I feel with this process is that there's a lot of French, Portuguese, and Spanish-speaking people. We know that we cannot change the word only in English. So first I give the word to Patricia from Attaque France. Please take the floor.
Bonjour tout le monde, merci Tord pour cette invitation. Bonjour à tous les amis du Forum social mondial ou des mouvements.
Patricia, I just asked people if they know how to find the translation.
Okay.
There is in the menu, there will be a globe sort of, and there you will find English if you want to have the translation from French to English. Sorry for not remembering before. Please move on, Patricia.
Oui, alors donc bonjour à tous, bonjour merci à Tord pour cette invitation et bonjour aux amis du Forum social mondial, puisque nous sommes aussi des membres du Conseil international du Forum social mondial. Alors moi je suis de Attaque France et je voudrais donc commencer par le mot France. Car il se trouve que la France joue un rôle majeur dans la généralisation, dans cette militarisation croissante, puisque nous avons le malheur, je dirais, en tant que mouvement social de gauche en France, d'être le deuxième exportateur, d'être devenu le deuxième exportateur d'armes dans le monde depuis 2023, après la Russie, mais je veux dire, après, pardon, les États-Unis et avant la Russie, mais deuxième exportateur, autant vous dire que pour l'économie française, la production d'armes est absolument indispensable. Nous sommes aussi, évidemment, possesseurs de la bombe atomique et nous avons un siège permanent au Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies, comme avec 4 autres pays qui sommes les 5 membres permanents du Conseil de sécurité avec droit de veto, qui sont les 5 plus grands producteurs d'armes du monde. Donc, autant vous dire que arriver à la paix dans ce contexte, c'est compliqué. En plus, en France, on continue à être un État impérialiste et colonial. On est allé au Sahel, on a en Nouvelle-Calédonie, Kanaki, et il y a comme ça plein d'exemples encore de la brutalité française post-coloniale, ou voire même encore colonialiste. Alors face à ça, les mouvements de la paix en France ont connu différentes évolutions et notamment pendant la guerre froide, hein, où ils ont été forts et après la guerre froide. Là, on peut dire qu'on n'a pas la même puissance que par exemple en Italie, la même force à travers les mouvements de la paix de mobilisation qu'en Italie par exemple sur le Stop Rearm Europe. Mais en revanche, ce que l'on voit se dresser en France de très intéressant, et je vais arriver à Attaque, c'est qu'il y a de plus en plus de convergence de lutte entre les mouvements pour la défense de la terre, de l'eau, du climat, les mouvements féministes, les mouvements antiracistes, les mouvements anticolonialistes et les mouvements de guerre à la guerre. Et je reviendrai un petit peu tout à l'heure sur cet exemple de coalition qui se met en place pour lutter. Et on se rend compte qu'au fond, l'extractivisme, la lutte contre le capitalisme, l'extractivisme, le colonialisme, ça va évidemment avec l'impossibilité d'une paix durable dans notre monde. Alors dans ce contexte, ATTAC, qui a été créé en 1998 pour désarmer, c'était le mot utilisé, les marchés, continue à avoir des actions pour désarmer les marchés, mais de plus en plus, on s'interroge donc sur la nécessité de désarmer le militarisme et de désarmer d'ailleurs les États. Alors, on a signé l'appel Stop Rearm Europe. Il y a d'ailleurs eu plein de discussions à l'intérieur de ATTAC, notamment par rapport à la guerre et à l'occupation de l'Ukraine par la Russie. Faut-il ou pas livrer des armes au mouvement de résistance en Ukraine? Donc ça n'était pas simple, mais on a signé cet appel. On a aussi des campagnes pour dénoncer nos banques, nos industries qui vendent des armes à Israël, donc les banques complices, comme les banques toxiques d'ailleurs. Par exemple, on attaque la BNP très clairement, et on est membre donc de cette coalition Guerre à la guerre, qui vise notamment en ce moment, en même temps que je vous parle, il y a le salon au Bourget de l'aéronautique et de l'aérospatiale, de l'espace, où se négocient des milliards de contrats d'armement. Et donc, il y a toute une coalition ce week-end avec des manifestations, un contre-salon du Bourget pour essayer justement de dire non à la guerre et non à la militarisation généralisée. Alors face à la déclaration d'Helsinki, on est pour le moment un peu observateur de la People's Declaration d'Helsinki. On pense que, je vois qu'il y a eu des discussions dans le chat, on se dit que bon, oui, effectivement, relancer les négociations de l'OSCE, ça nous semble bien. Alors en tant que mouvement attaque, peut-être que c'est pas notre angle d'attaque. En revanche, les États, les institutions internationales sont dans un état catastrophique, donc il faut peut-être le mentionner quelque part. C'est-à-dire que comment avoir confiance dans des États qui, comme notre Macron, soutient inconditionnellement Israël? Qu'est-ce qu'on peut attendre de ces gouvernements-là? C'est quand même un problème dont le capitalisme est encore au cœur de la logique économique. Et donc, on se dit que peut-être dans la déclaration, il faudrait faire mention à cet aspect-là et avoir peut-être un petit peu plus de radicalité, même si on souligne le côté très positif d'inclure les migrations, le climate, les women, les femmes aussi dans tous ces combats-là, mais il faut quand même dénoncer le caractère totalement impérialiste des puissances des États et de nos institutions internationales. J'ai à peu près tenu 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Patricia. And we see that ATTAC is really one of the main movements now who is able to connect issues, which is a very hard thing to do. I put in the chat the link to this Stop Rearm, which is really catching very wide support from trade unions and many others. This is, of course, the kind of follow-up activity we can do after Helsinki. But the problem here with the Helsinki or the challenge actually is trying to address a bit what you, Patricia, said in terms of we have to formulate our own principles. We are more far away from the governments everywhere, more or less, at least in Europe, than ever before. The movements are sort of kicked out of any kind of dialogue, any kind of relationship with governments. And they're also kicking on their own Helsinki courts from 1975. So that is the idea of this whole process. Now I invite Ardo Sow from Senegal, who is a main organizer of the next World Social Forum, which will take place in Benin. There was a bit of a misunderstanding. I only said to him that he could at least say some few words and in what way this is useful for movements for peace and those who are defending both social and civil rights. So please take the floor. I hope you're still somewhere Oh, he probably have left. No, there you are, Ardo. Please take the floor and you can speak English.
We have just a misunderstanding in the hours slot. And thank you also all the comrades and friends from the World Social Forum. Warm revolutionary greets from Africa and its people, its movement, and its territory of struggle and dignity. So today I speak as a member of the facilitation committee team of the World Social Forum 2026 in Cotonou in Benin. And it's an opportunity for me to join this important online meeting that continue to spirit the resistance and internationalism. So just to give my solidarity to the Finnish and Swedish peace movement at the time of increased repression and shrinking democratic space, your voice matters. Your ability to connect struggle from Mexico to Japan, from the Sahel to Scandinavia is inspiring and vital. So as we are gathering here today, in a time of danger, as you know, that the war between Iran and Israel is a potential for the regional escalation, and remind once again that the global conflict are rarely contained, and it's always the people of the global south, like in Africa, who bear the heaviest burden through the rising price, food insecurity, diverted resources, and intensification of militarization. But for me, this crisis is not isolated. It's a part of broader system, a world order rooted in imperialism, militarism, and neoliberalism that speaks of inequality, fuels authoritarianism, and sacrifice the many of the power of the few. Yet no one of this began yesterday. From its very inception, colonialization was not simply about territorial control, as you know, in Africa. It was a systematic machinery of domination designed to benefit European powers. It imposed political domination, religious domination, cultural and linguistic domination, erasing local identities under the mask of civilization, as you know, and all above all, economic domination allowed the colonizer to extract real materials and exploit human labor without limits, as you know. Just to remember, as Jules Ferry used to say, openly declared in 1885, colonialization was driven by the needs to secure supply chain, market, and labor to serve Europe industry refueled by open racism and capitalism. So for me today, this logic have not disappeared. They have been reshaped through debt, trade agreement, extractivism of this mega project, digital imperialism, climate apartheid, and military bases. This neo-colonialism machine is alive, and so is our resistance, for me. So, and that's why in the world marked by the war, extraction, and dispossession, the World Social Forum is more relevant than ever. And the World Social Forum is not just an event. And for us, it will not be just an event. And it is a political space and political innovation and a space of resistance and construction born in opposition of the Davos order. As you see yesterday, on 2 days before, we have the G7 meeting. And it is where people, not the elite, will gather to reclaim the meaning of justice, democracy, and peace. So as you know, that since 2001, the World Social Forum has stood counterweight to that global elite, while billionaires and state gather at Davos to preserve privilege. We meet in Porto Alegre, in Tunis, in Dakar, and soon it will be in Cotonou in Benin to forge new paths of solidarity and collective action. And in 2026, the World Social Forum will come back to Africa for the 6th time in the land of resistance, spirituality, and struggle. Cotonou Benin will host the World Social Forum rooted in memory of transformation, a forum organized by Movement from the South for all people of the world. And it will center land, water, seed struggle, and amplify the feminist, ecological, and anti-colonialism resistance, tackle digital control and the corporate capture of life, and promote peace, sovereignty, and climate justice for all. Let us be clear. We will be co-pilots. We will not ask for a seat. We are building this table. And from this space of online convergence, I carry the voice of the movement from Africa to say security without justice is domination, to say that peace without dignity is submission, diplomacy without peoples is illusion. On behalf of the World Social Forum process, I propose that the People's Declaration be encouraged at the Charter of the World Social Forum, rejecting from all of imperialism, neocolonialism, capitalism, and patriarchy, that we co-organize transcontinental assembly with Africa, Latin America, Asia, and indigenous people at the center, not as guests, but as the author of the future. Let this not be a nostalgic look back. Let it be a step forward, leap a bold move toward a grammar of planetary justice, popular sovereignty, and collective liberation. And finally, from the heart of Africa, I extend a warm, urgent, and determination, that an invitation to all of you here, member of the World Social Forum, to join us in Cotonou in Benin in 2026, to bring your voice, your struggle, your dreams. Let us turn the World Social Forum into a movement of rupture and renewal. Thank you, Thor, for the invitation.
Thank you, Ardo. Thank you very much from this message from West Africa. So, Ubuntu, yeah. Well, I haven't been able to manage the time well. We have, normally it's supposed to end at 17:30, and suddenly soon there will be another webinar at 18. But we have to let the speakers invited to speak, and I hope that the participants can stay. Those who are with us on the speakers list are Sergio Basoli, Heidi Mansholt, Peter Degischer, and Thomas Valvien. So please, Sergio, take the floor.
Hi, Todd. Hi, everybody. I'm here. I try to be short, but okay, I start. So the outcome of the meeting of the final declaration in Helsinki was the result of over 2 years of debate and dialogue between states. And we were in the Cold War period, and there was the urgent need to stop the arms race. It was a long-term vision based on the system of international law, multilateralism, and the growth of the UN system. But today, 50 years later, the Helsinki spirit is dramatically and dangerously missing and lost. So it is even more urgent than 50 years ago to stop the arms race and avoid the risk of the Third World War with the new threat of the use of nuclear weapons. The spirit of Helsinki, as we know, is based on dialogue, cooperation, trust between states, building common security and peace based on international law. But this is the exact contrary of what is happening now. So why and how can we react? And this is, I think, our question, our common question. But I wish to start and to focus my speech in the question that, and I hope there is agreement, that the neoliberalism system, the energy-intensive development model, inequalities, the concentration of wealth in the hand of few economic groups and a few states are destroying the planet. democracies, right and freedom, peaceful coexistence among people. Wars become the solution for maintaining power, for accessing energy resources, water, minerals, and for controlling market and prices. Security means, no, according to this vision, means national security, or better we can say global insecurity, chaos, global disorder, dearth of international law. War is again a tool for regulating relation between states. This is the news. The arms race and nuclear weapons race to win wars. No more limits, no more rules. Conquer or die has once again become the motto. The peace movement, the trade union movement, the social movement, we must all mobilize to denounce this mad rush toward the destruction of humanity and the planet. We must put universal principles and values back at the center of politics. The urgent to demand that state and government fully respect international law and human rights without exception or double standards. We have to campaign for stop rearmament and the ratification of the Treaty of No Proliferation to prohibition of nuclear weapons. We have to call state and government for investing resources to reduce inequalities, redistribute wealth and technology to defeat the real enemies. Angers, ignorance, disease, climate change, authoritarianism, nationalism, patriarchy. They have to reverse their priorities of public spending, reduce military spending and invest in new jobs, health services, education, and safety against environmental disaster. It is not possible that today we spend $2.7 trillion in weapons and less than 250 billion on the fight against poverty, just transition, human rights, local economy, worker rights. We deeply reject and we cannot accept the blackmail that industrial conversion has to be based on military industry and the production on weapons. So I think this has to be a common international agenda as inserted into Helsinki Plus 50 Declaration, as is already part of the Italian peace and disarmament movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this voice from a very strong trade union. And now let's continue with Heidi Meinzold from the famous Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, who has been with us more than 100 years and still are very active. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And I'm also coordinating an interesting working group on women and gender realities in the OSCE area on the Civic Solidarity platform. And this is where I'm speaking, especially also in this name. So I'm coming from Germany, from a country where not just politicians tell us we have to prepare for war. It's a widespread feeling, and therefore I'm really thankful always to Yuri to say that we have to prepare for peace in any way we can. And I can just tell you at yesterday a meeting with the Peace Research Institute's report they bring, they were our allies of the peace community. Now they are the advocacy for the politicians, and this is really dangerous because we are lacking this support. So regarding the OSCE and especially the value of the common security, we always said that the cross-border, the beyond border work, for especially also there is a big tradition of women's activists, and as also Olga said, this is the basis for trust building, and this commitment is really necessary on a local, but without thinking on in the border relationships, on really working on what is needed for our daily life. But of course, the local approach is not enough, and therefore the international working together in solidarity is extremely necessary. The Women, Peace and Security Agenda is a key document to open this possibility, or to keep open these possibilities to work beyond borders. And we have just done a study that with this new authoritarian and renationalization, of course, even worse with the war and bombing, these key elements are, we are really about losing these elements. So the cross-border work is essential, and the OSCE is still a body who make this possible. My second point is that there is a strong there is a need to strengthen the cross-dimensional approach. These three dimensions, they are still too separated, and the security dimension, especially from a feminist and intersectional perspective, the security perspective is preventive, is protective, and must be participatory. And it's not enough to have a conflict prevention center, which is somehow a bit lost in the institution. So the second point, the human dimension, and also especially a point from a feminist position, the way of participating and denouncing human rights violation is not gender neutral. And here the OSCE must improve also their sessions in the human dimension, where civil society is as if it would be something neutral. It is not. And especially we are faced with more and more Congos in the civil society sphere. So we have to support each other to keep our basic participatory approach. And this, of course, means also integrating women in equally, meaningfully. The economy dimension is nearly without civil society participation here. And my friend and colleague Annemarie Sanja works a lot on the questions of care economy. It's not yet arrived in the OSCE structure, really. And this an anti-capitalistic approach is needed to strengthen this more. And the last point is, of course, what we heard already today is the climate justice is an issue, is a human rights issue, is a safety issue. So this, the OSCE must strengthen this more. And I want to end with one point which I found in the Helsinki agreement, or in the former, the founding principles. There is a very interesting chapter on Mediterranean, the cooperation with the Mediterranean. This can be used also, I think, to make the access broader for people, not just sometimes for Israeli participation in OSCE meetings, what I found, but really to bring in the solutions, pacifist solution also for these regions. Thank you very much. Yeah, looking forward meeting you in Helsinki.
Thank you, Heidi. We have a new session for America coming up, so we have to really try to make this as short as possible. But we have Peter Degischer, who I know have a very interesting perspective as well. And then, of course, as the final speaker, Thomas Wallgren from Finland. So, Peter, please take the floor.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Vienna. So I just want to mention that this year Austria is celebrating the 70th anniversary of its permanent neutrality, which is still quite welcome by 70 to 80% of the population. So we will have some national celebrations around the 26th of October, and the peace groups will have a forum on neutrality for peace, which will take place for Austria, maybe invited some foreigners as well. Austria declared by its constitution to join neither military coalitions nor to cooperate in military activities of conflicting states. Austria promised to protect its neutrality, and Austria takes part in peace missions approved by the UN or the OECD. In 1975, Austria participated actively in the Helsinki process by Chancellor Bruno Kreisky. But there are some problems regarding the allowance of military transports by NATO through Austrian territory. So our objections are not really filled in. As well, regarding the participation in state sanctions not approved by the UN, for example, the EU sanctions against the Russian Federation. But we try to bring forward the active neutrality policy towards peace, to provide diplomatic activities of our foreign ministry to initiate international negotiations towards ceasefire and peace, ending particularly the Russian-Ukrainian war. Regarding the OECD anniversary, we tried to encourage peace movements in Europe to appeal for a peace initiative of the OECD during this year. Was not really successful, but as this year's meeting of the foreign ministers of the members of the OECD is transferred from Finland to Vienna, allowing the admission of Russian and Belarus delegations. This might be a chance for diplomatic activities, and we tried to appeal to the Austrian ministry to take some actions. But the Austrian Foreign Ministry told us that the program of the meeting will be prepared by the Finnish chairpersonship, and therefore I appeal to the Nordic Peace Alliance to intervene at the Finnish Foreign Ministry, as peace would stop killing, destruction, and alleviate a lot of international problems. It is demanded by the UN and the majority of the people. So there should be some activity according to the rules of the Helsinki Accord. Anyhow, we plan to call for a peace demonstration at the beginning of the OECD meeting on the 4th of December in front of the conference building on the Heldenplatz in Vienna. We might invite international participation, and we will communicate details of that event. Maybe we need a court to investigate the conformity of government's actions with rules of OECD as well. I don't know if this would help, but anything we need some rules for the behavior of the governments. Thank you. Good luck for your activities in Helsinki.
Thank you, Peter. And now we have the final speaker who fits the purpose of this whole session and the whole project very well, because he happens to be both the representative of the Finnish peace movement, who has been really hit hard by defunding and in general new situation, but keeps together. That's the strength of the Finnish peace movement. But he happens also to be very much involved in migrant issues and a board member of Friends of the Earth in Finland, and by chance also a social democratic politician and a professor in philosophy and inspired by Gandhi. So please take the floor, Thomas.
Thank you so much. Thanks to all friends. It's been so great to listen to you and share with you. We live now in the time of the light skies of Nordic summer. It's very, very beautiful here. So you should be here for midsummer. Well, let me also say that the political sky is very dark. So we need the activists, the movements, the people in Finland and in all Nordic countries need the solidarity and inspiration of international cooperation more than ever. I just want to share with you, we are aware of the decline of the Nordic politics, of the Nordic model. I just want, it's both a domestic and an international decline. We're losing the Nordic voice as a voice of cooperation and common security and peace and justice in international politics. As you know, we're also losing the domestic vision of a fair, socially just society. We have very massive attacks on the trade unions going on in our country, which you may not have heard of. What you have heard of course, is that Nordics have given up Sweden and Finland, the policy of non-alignment, and joined NATO. I just want to share with you as one example of the darkness of the times in Finland, that last year in Parliament, the Finnish Parliament passed accepted the defense cooperation agreement with the United States of America, which allows the building of many military bases, American bases in Finland. Now, this defense cooperation agreement was passed without a vote in Parliament because there was only one member of Parliament who wanted to oppose it, and with one member you don't get the vote. So this is the darkness of the times. All parties in Parliament have been integrated into a militarized, securitized, anti-justice policy. This is where we stand, and in that, so we come from. You come to Finland 1st of August in a moment which is difficult for us, but maybe also good because we're facing the reality that the lasting solutions to our times, the lasting solutions to global peace and global justice for all, those lasting solutions require an integration of the issues which we were not aware of in the time when the Nordics got the profile as sort of a shining light on the planet. There never was a solution on our part that would combine global solidarity and justice with peace for all. There was also always a false image that our consumer paradise, our growth model society could be replicated, could be a model for the whole planet. So now when Finland is joining the Western club of the privileged, militarized rich, we're not joining it only because we're afraid of Russia. The deeper reason is Finland and Sweden and Norway have joined because we're afraid of losing our privileged position as elites in the consumer society. So when you come to Helsinki, 1st of August, we will celebrate that 50 years ago, we had a better vision, a vision of a better place for us in the world than we have today. So we will celebrate that spirit of building security on the basis of cooperation and trust, and disarmament and anti-nuclear policies and anti-alignment. But we will also see the Helsinki meetings this summer as a step towards the meetings in Benin next year, the World Social Forum, because the thing which is so hard for us to face and which we have to build on the long term is the vision in which the different issues are integrated, as we try to do in the World Social Forum, where climate justice and peace and social justice at home is one and the same. And for this, friends, we really need your inspiration, your leadership, your voices, your experience, also here in Finland. And we'll share ours, and we'll build a beautiful world. I thank you so much for sharing with me. And we need you in Helsinki, and we will be eager to come to Benin and share more. Thank you so much.
And thank you everyone for participating, and of course, especially for the speakers who have prepared themselves. And I think the last words were really summing it up in a very precise way and also looking forward. Thank you very much also to the interpreters, and let's hope we get some more languages next time, so we get a bit coming together in a multi-world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tord, to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.